Are you ready for cocktails and conversation? This is Herspiration Happy Hour.
Oh, look at there. Happy Wednesday and welcome to another episode of Herspiration Happy Hour. Like, oh my gosh, it's been a day. It's still being a day. As you see, I am sitting in my vehicle, but you know what? I'm still going to show up and show out for you all. I see my drink of choice tonight. This is your unapologetic diva, Dr. G.
And this is Louisa Harrell, the Blue Phoenix.
Yeah, and Cortina, I was going to say our girl Cortina will be on shortly, and then Tessina is having, with some family right now, so she will not be here tonight. But what are we sipping on besides coffee?
We are sipping on, which the way your day went, I'm pretty sure you need this, a banana chai espresso martini. Right.
Okay. Do tell.
Okay. It's made with absolute vodka infused with chai tea. 3/4 parts Tempest. 3/4 parts Tempest figure banana liqueur. 1 part chilled espresso. 2 dashes of Scrappy's cardamom bitters. And so you combine all ingredients in a shaker for 15 to 20 seconds, and then you strain into a chilled glass and garnish with 3 cardamom pods.
Okay, sounds good. You know what? I am such a martini girl, but that feels like that's too super sweet for me.
Yeah, it does sound like
it's a whole lot of sweetness in a glass. I feel like how much alcohol is really in there?
It's all of it is basically alcohol, but it's infused. Like one is infused with the chai tea, the other is infused with the banana liqueur. Yeah.
Well, banana liqueur is kind of sweet, anyhow. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But on a good note, do you have your WCW for today?
I do, and it's actually a young lady who is an author of a book called Rebirth. This book is not necessarily an autobiography, but it does somewhat tell the story of her life. And it also has poems and short stories in it. She says that the reason why she wrote this book is because she wants to reach women who have had traumas and are working toward healing from those traumas. And for the men that may have caused those traumas, or for men that has had traumas and women that may have caused it. So it's basically about healing and helping people deal with their different traumas. The name of the book is called Rebirth. And she's also working on a new book to be out, I think sometime this year, called Renewed. So it's a series of books. So her name is Queen Tijuana, Tijwanna.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right. Shout out. So you know what? Today, normally I do have one. And of course, I could have easily researched one. But you know what? Today, I'm actually going to shout out myself. I'm going to be my own WCW because I had such a remarkable day today. Being able to not just be a part of the NFL tackle reading event that they had going on, just to be in a space where you get an opportunity to read to kids and have fun with kids. And the pep rally was like off the chain. If you go and look at the videos on my between my Instagram and my Facebook where I was doing lives, you would see how much fun we were having. But just to know that I would step out of my comfort zone to be a part of something so big and so rewarding and so enriching, it says a lot. You know, I'm putting myself in a place of intent for 2022. And yes, I know I'm a part of a lot of things, but I've done all my book readings in the schools solo. And the other part, when you are a part of something like this, you have to donate books. So just for people to know, I'm one of those authors that believe in literacy so much. I actually donated and took to the school 50 of my books.
Wow, that's cool.
And not to monetize off of it at all, but to allow the students to have and be able to be exposed to the first book that I put out last year. And on the heels of having my third release March 22nd, I was like, you know what better way to be a part of something than to just be, to be able to give. So
And remind us what the name of that book is.
Oh, yes, it's my Brown Girl Be Social and Brown Boy Be Social. But March 22nd, my book, Brown Girl and Brown Boy Be Well, will be dropping. So I'm just extremely proud that I'm such a giver and I'm a believer in literacy. And I actually put my money and my books where my mouth is, because it's not always about receiving, and it's also not always about making money when you're a kid's book author. And I understand a lot of people don't believe in that. However, the opportunities that came back to me today, and the people that I met today, and the people that I was able to be in the rooms with today, was in love with my books as well, and are sharing them all on their social media. So in the end of the day, me giving away 50 books, I reaped a heavy reward by being put in spaces that are catapulting my books now. So sometimes you have to step out and do what's not comfortable to be where God wants you to be. So I'm shouting myself out today. I'm my own WCW.
And might I add of how proud I am of you. And as long as I've known you, you have been doing stuff, but it's like I've always, every time you do something, I'm like, oh my God, it's so cool, and I'm like, I know her, y'all. I know her.
But I will have to say, if you recall back in 2019, you were the very first person to interview me when I wrote my first book. So that right there is such a staple for you to be on this journey with me. And now I'm 17 books in. And I really had no desire to be an author in the first place. So,
I remember you used to say that. I'm like, yeah, okay.
I'm like, I'm not writing anymore. And here I am still writing. But, like I said, I think it's my goal this year is to live with intent. So that's one of the things that I'm doing, is doing things that in the traditional people's eyes, it does not look like it looks crazy to do. But in hindsight, it's going to reap the rewards that's necessary for me to have and catapult me in a way that I would have never had an opportunity to before, unless I stepped into doing this. So, well, you know what? We also have our guest already here, so we could bring her on a little bit earlier, because I'm absolutely interested in having Miss DeBlair Tate on. She has over 15 years of experience as a certified fitness trainer and has participated in professional fitness competitions throughout her career. That says a lot, y'all, because it takes me a lot just to even get to the gym. I ain't even gonna lie. Me and gyms are not friends. I love the outdoor run, but you all see how small I am and think that I work out. It's not like I used to. I think I'm just more of a runner. So I'm always interested when people are into fitness and can be in the gym and do a whole lot. So it's going to be some good conversations going on with DeBlair, because I'm trying to figure out this year how to tone and just kind of what motivates her to be able to go to the gym all the time. So, she also, have accolades, including 4th place in the nationally recognized supernatural bodybuilding and fitness competition, and later placing first in a competition that catapulted her into worldwide pro status competitions.
All right, now
we're just gonna bring her on up here. Come on, welcome DeBlair.
Welcome.
And then she got the guns out. Good gosh. How are you today? Happy Wednesday. You ready for some cocktails and conversation?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so first, introduce yourself to everybody. Tell everybody who DeBlair Tate is and what you do, what you have going on, and then we're going to jump right in.
Well, like you said, I'm from Mississippi, and I wear a couple of hats. I'm the owner of the 8Figure brand, which is expanding to multiple things. I'm a military instructor. I'm an author now, because my book Pre-Launch will happen in a couple of weeks, so I'm excited about
congratulations.
that. Yeah, so I'm super, super excited about that. Also, I do so much. I'm a coach, health and wellness coach. I'm a life coach. I'm a prior personal trainer. So now I just do health and wellness coaching and things like that. So that's just a little bit about me.
Are you still in the gym?
As far as like training?
No, just working out. Do you still feel
I
like
literally just finished working out like 15 minutes ago. So I cannot
Oh,
wait.
wow.
Yeah. And I didn't even get to finish my workout. I was like, oh crap, I gotta go. So I'm gonna go back downstairs once I finish with you guys. So
Okay. So you talked about your book that's launching soon. Let's talk about it. What's the title of it? What inspired you to decide to say, you know what, I think it's time for me to write this story?
yes. So I don't want to tell you the title yet because I want it to kind of be a surprise. So the pre-launch is going to be in a couple of weeks, and that's when I'll expose everything. So I'm kind of like building up just, excitement for people. Like they know that it's a book, but nobody knows the title, what it looks like. So I just want to kind of, it's a little exciting for me to do it, but it's pretty much about me growing up in the small town of Mississippi and the challenges that I had growing up in that town. And initially it was targeted to the people from small towns because we're often overlooked because of we don't have that many opportunities because it's so small, and I just wanted people to be encouraged to know that it's life beyond that. But you got to go out there and get it because it's not going to just be given to you. And the opportunities are not going to just come to our town because we're overlooked because we're so small. So it's just a way to show the obstacles that I had to face, the racism, basically the lack of opportunities, the gang violence, killings and things like that, in order to just kind of fight my way to find success, or what I consider to be success.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have a pivotal question. It is now officially Women's History Month.
Yes.
What is in your book that resonates the most, that this month is so pivotal that women should take and have as a part of their legacy?
So more so taking care of yourself, because I open up and talk about my health challenges, because we as women, we have a lot, everyone has their own challenges, and taking that seriously and not taking it for granted. When we're younger, we always feel like everything is going to be fine. And then, we get to a point in our lives where we start facing these health challenges and start taking life for granted. So if anything, the highlight for me is basically that portion where I kind of share how strong we have to be as women. We face a lot. Everything is always on our backs. We are pretty much the forefront and have to be strong for everybody else. But how powerful we are, we got to learn how to take care of ourselves in the meantime.
And so what does that look like for you now?
It changed, and life happened. So, you have to start being more intentional. My boundaries are so strong, and me just making sure I pay attention to not overworking myself and my priorities, and not taking life for granted. And also your priorities, like your family and things like that, not thinking they're going to always be there. I'm a person that for a long time, my career came first, and I didn't even know that, you know what I mean? I was just going, and I thought that's what I was supposed to do, but I was missing out on so many things, so much of life. So now my boundaries and who I allow to have access to me, my self-care, and me being intentional with what is important to me, putting my friends and my family at the forefront. I'm not perfect at it yet, but that is on my top of my list to do. I won't take them for granted and think that they're going to always be here.
Okay. I love all of that. So now I have this question. When I hear people talk about balance and boundaries, how do you put boundaries in place? Where's that starting point for you? Because I already know saying no is hard. Saying no can be extremely hard. So how do you start creating those boundaries where you don't feel like you're not hurting people's feelings? Although I don't really care about anybody's feelings, but I know some people are more nurturing than me. Everybody. But how do you start putting those boundaries in place so that way you start letting people know, I'm sorry, I can't do this because of self-care purposes. So what does that look like for you when you started making that transition?
So to me, communication is very important. I just started letting people know up front the DeBlair that you saw before will no longer be the DeBlair that you see. So I do care about people's feelings if I can help it. Now, I'm not a person that's going to just cater to a feeling or whatever. I now will put me first when I need to put me first, but I'm a very supportive person, and support looks like a lot of different things. So just because I'm not able to show up or attend something, you know, the type of person that I am, you already know that I'm a supporter, and I'm going to support in other ways. But even with me answering the phone, like I just don't answer the phone. I used to stop whatever I'm doing to answer the phone and to be there for people. Now I'm more intentional with, like, if I say this is my time to write, or this is my time to work out or have time with my family, nothing is going to interrupt that. Now, if it's an emergency, you shoot me a text message, you know, those things are different. I've even set boundaries with waking up in the morning. I used to wake up in the morning. The first thing I'll do is pick up my phone and see who's calling or text or need to speak with me. I don't do that anymore. I get myself together, and everything that I do is intentional. If I'm going to call you back or whatever, I know exactly what time I'm going to call you, because it's going to be after I completed something that I know I needed to take care of. So my schedule is very intentional, and that's just how it is. It's just communication, and they're watching how I move now.
So you started putting these boundaries in place. You started doing more self-care. What was that decision to say, I'm going to write this book about me? Because that's really hard when you start pouring yourself out into a book. And even more so, what made you say, I need to share this with the world?
So I did this, you know what, for a long time I practiced, like, you know, telling your why, all of this stuff. And it got to a point I realized that I wasn't sharing my why. And my publicist ended up getting me an interview with, it was through Clorox, Birds of Bees, like her story. They did a biography on me, like a little documentary. And in that documentary, they were asking me many questions. And this was the first time ever that I kind of opened up on the pre-interview with them and started sharing some things that I was dealing with. And that made me realize, like, oh my God, like, I have a story to tell, and I'm not doing the people around me, or I say I want to be a helper, but I'm not doing them any due diligence by holding in this information and not using what I've gone through to be a platform, a foundation for someone else to not have to deal with everything I dealt with. So I wanted to make a selfless act. And the book is based on my life, but it's not about me. The book is about how what I'm doing can help somebody else. So that's what the intent is. Like, hey, this is what I did, but I want you to reflect on this, and how can it help you?
Okay. So our other co-host, the girlfriend therapist, just walked in the room. Hey.
Hello.
Hey, Cortina.
We have Miss DeBlair Tate with us tonight, and she's just a powerhouse. Just all her energy is just love. And I'm so glad that you made the decision to share intimate parts of yourself, even though you say it's not about me, because it's just goal is to help others. What was the writing process for you? Like, was there anything emotional that you had to shed? Was there any reaction to what you were writing about as you wrote?
Oh, absolutely. You're reliving. It's almost like therapy. You know, I don't know if you guys are a fan of therapy, but when you go through things, it's almost
we absolutely are.
I'm a therapist.
So it's almost like, you know, you're reliving some of those things. And what the most eye-opening part of my book was when I had to, you know, retell the story of like racism in my city, and me not even realizing that it was racism until like I was long gone. You know what I mean? It was so normal for me for us to have separate prom. So we had a black prom and we had a white prom. You know, we had a black homecoming queen, we had a white homecoming queen. And that stuff was so normal that it wasn't until I left school and I invited someone to my class reunion that they asked, like, where the white people at? And I was like, oh, and I said it so nonchalantly. I was like, oh, their prom was last week. They was like, what? Like, you saying it like it's so normal. And I was like, well, what do you mean? It was like, so y'all had separate proms? That ain't normal, you know? And then with that even comment, it started making me just relive some of the situations that I dealt with that we just accepted. You know what I mean? We accepted because it was our norm, and that's all we knew. And that prompted me to even write the book too, so I can just kind of like open up the vision. We know that it exists, but what is being done about it, because it's still current today. It's still current today. And my city is the location where Fannie Lou Hamer, that's where she got beat. So Winona, Mississippi is the location. She got beat in our jailhouse, and, you know, lost her vision and everything like that. So that's the forefront of that. And I thought, I was like, dang, we have history there. We have a story to tell.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons why mental health is more, you know, needed, or mental health advocacy, and that stigma needs to break in the Black community, because what you're talking about is a form of racial, well, not even a form of, is racial trauma. You know, as you step out into this world and you're looking around like, oh, this, what I went through is not normal. And the fact that we haven't moved that much further from having those situations even happen. And so this is what traumatized people who still live in that community. And here's another example. So I tell people all the time, and your story is a testament of why I share this with people. There are a lot of people that say, I'm too old to be having to explain myself to white people, or explain Black culture to white people, or what's offensive to white people. There are white people that still exist in this world that has never had interaction with a Black person. It's like you walk out and it's like, oh, what in the world is this? Except for what they've been taught. And that's
seen on TV.
Or seen on, yes, exactly, or seen on TV. And what your story is a testament to that, of why we need to be having these discussions with white people, with other minority or majority groups who are not Black. And so if we are not willing to have those conversations, what we do is we either perpetuate the stereotype for them, or we never let them know what they're saying and what they're doing is harmful to us. Because nobody can't even advocate for a Black person if you don't know what you're advocating for. That's what makes me most upset, when white people be out here, oh, let me go because it looks okay to protest. But what are you really protesting? You don't really know the struggle unless you start having these conversations with Black people to understand the trauma that we've had to overcome, and still are trying to overcome from our ancestors. Can we really heal as a community?
So what are you talking about from our ancestors? I would just say, like, just recent, there was the Supreme Court just passed a law saying that lynching is a hate crime. That was a trigger for me. You know, that was a trigger for me. It was a trigger, but I mean, I know how to control my triggers now, but that was a trigger that it's opening up old wounds. So you have to pass laws to tell people that hanging us is wrong.
Exactly.
Well, when it comes to that, so going to what Pam was saying in regards to slavery, so going all the way back there, even predating that, right? So we came over here, most of us who made it to what we call today the United States, that land, stripped of everything. You don't have a culture. You don't have anything. You don't even have an identity. You're not even known as a person, right? And so you experience all of these years, hundreds of years, right, of slavery, right? Now we're free. We don't have nothing. We don't have no house. We don't have no land. We're just giving nothing. So a lot of us, but not us, but I'm talking about culturally, us, what we had to do is sharecrop, right? So now you're making pennies on the dollar just to make it. So it's not slavery, but in a way, you're not getting proper wages. It is slavery, right?
Right.
No one ever got therapy after that. So we got slavery. That's pain. That's trauma. We're not doing anything about it. We're not healing it or anything like that. Now we have Reconstruction. Now we have Jim Crow. Now we have civil rights. So we have all of these different periods where it's still discrimination. It's still racism. It's still oppression. And at no point are we getting any healing collectively or individually from any of these things that we have gone through. So what happens, right? Post-generational, well, not post, but if we want to talk about post-traumatic slave syndrome, or intergenerational trauma. What happens to us in our DNA? Epigenetics, right? It doesn't change our DNA, but it changes the way that we respond to different things. So it's definitely historical. Now we're moving forward to where we are today. And if we still have individuals that don't even understand why they respond to things the way they do, why they act the way they do, one, they're not necessarily being exposed to it. So if I'm not even exposed to what's happening to me is wrong, I'm not going to even think that, oh, there is a different way. Almost like you, what you said with your prom. Right. That's what we do. Like, that's not anything outside of the norm until someone said something to you, expose you to, girl, no, that ain't the way the world does it. Now you start questioning, oh my gosh, the way we've been doing things, is it really wrong? Okay, well, what does it say about me? Are they looking down on me? And now it starts to mess with your self-esteem. It starts to mess with your self-worth. And this is just in general, because I'm not saying you specifically, but I used your example.
No, I understand. And it's sort of embarrassing even to tell people that, because it's not like it has changed. It's the same as it was when I was coming up. You know, there's not much that has changed. And even recent, and you all can look up this story, it's a triple murder that occurred in our city, the Tardy Furniture murder, where a Black man was tried 6 times for the same murder. 6 times. Okay, so you're on death row. You were tried 6 times, and now all of a sudden you're free. You're not even in jail anymore. So it gets to the point where they expose some corrupt stuff that was going on, or whatever the case may be. But how am I on death row, tried 6 times, and now I'm a free person if racism doesn't exist in the equation? And we're very careful with talking about that story, because it's still to the point now where people are hush-hush about it, because things have happened when people came forward and started discussing that case. They came down and did a documentary on it. It was like a long documentary. And I think that is the thing that opened up the doors and basically started getting people to like really, really pay attention, because like I said, people don't pay attention to our town because it's so small. We have about 5,000-6,000 people. So nobody's paying attention to us. There's no highlight down there that's paying attention to us. So that's another reason why I felt like I had to step up and do something and bring some exposure to our city and let people know that it's not okay for people to treat us any kind of way. It's not okay for us to accept that because we feel like we need the job. We're gonna accept this type of behavior because we need to feed our family. Like, why do we have to continue to sacrifice for things that should be normal in society? It's not okay.
But you also have to look at it like this, right? So we had the whole, we're fighting for our civil rights, for our voting rights, right? And so then the lynching mentality came into, and it's like, if you vote, you will die. You have no protection, because guess what? The police officers and the judges and the attorneys, they all work for us. So what are you going to do about it? So now we got voter suppression. Let's look at where we are today and the laws, the voter suppression laws now that are really being passed, right? Where they're redrawing district lines because they're looking at the voter turnout. And it's like, oh no, these Black people, these minorities starting to use their voice. They starting to, enact their power. And if they begin to vote, guess what's going to happen? The people who we want in office, they're not going to be anymore, because it's going to really be a reflection of what the people want. So, no, we got to bait and switch. Okay, that's the way it was. Let's shake this up a little bit. Let's mix up these, lines as it relates to the guidelines for voting. And for some people who don't see the bigger goal, it's kind of like, I'm not finna wait in line for 16 hours because they close 20% of the voting precincts in an urban area, whereas they didn't close any that needed to be closed in more.
Which were intentional, of course.
So it's kind of like, okay, the old lady who can't necessarily early vote, or she doesn't have the ability to, you want this lady to stand that in 85-degree weather, and whoever tries to give her water, you're going to arrest them, right? So you're making all of these laws because you see when people get the knowledge, when they really want to fight for what they want, it's like, okay, we like them better when they was quiet. We like them better when they weren't voting. And so it's almost, they just not hanging us, right, by the trees, but they're doing it through legislation.
Yes.
And so where we are, yes, we're trying to move forward, but it's like the person who still has the power, they still trying to play puppet master and manipulate where we are and what we are seeing. But I just say, you know, we just got to keep on doing what we're doing and being resilient. And resilience is like a love-hate relationship with that, right? Because at what point do Black people are we able to take a breath from having to always be resilient, keep on paving the paint and going forward and doing all of this stuff, when if we look at the Constitution, that's what we're supposed to get.
Actually, the Constitution was never written for Black people.
No, it was not.
It though. I'm talking about the Constitution, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, about the Reconstruction era, right? So I'm talking about post, right? Slavery and all of that. When the Emancipation Proclamation, I'm talking about when we're talking.
And with the 13th Amendment, Mississippi just got ratified to abolish slavery in 1995.
But see, when it comes to those things like that, so those are just like paper type laws, right? Because if you look at it, even in Alabama, they still have a law on the book where Blacks cannot marry whites. Is it still enforced? I'm not saying it's right. Now, I don't want you to think I'm saying that. But there are some outdated laws that are on the book that if people don't even know that those laws exist, it's not until people identify it that we are now able to actually write in a change. If nobody don't say anything, it's just going to be on the book. We don't enforce it. We don't look at it. It's just like, okay, let's say I'm a new senator. I'm like, oh, hell no. I mean.
But guess what? History repeats itself, though. And that's a leg for them to stand on. So if it's not changed, it's just unfortunate. And I hear you, even with this whole lynching is a hate crime now thing. Okay, it needed to be done if there was even something that was even said at that time. But what do you think it does for us? You know what I mean? I'm full-time military. I've been in the military for 21 years. I battle every day because I work around of just a variety of people. And you have to kind of like try to see people for who they are and not wonder in your head, like, what are you talking about at the dinner table? What type of names are you calling us at the dinner table? But when the whole George Floyd thing happened, we were pretty much forced to do breakouts. So they forced everyone to do breakouts to force a conversation. And some of the people that had to be forced to do a conversation were some of the main supporters of, you know, so it's kind of like, how do you continue to live in society when you have to tiptoe around certain things? And like you said, being resilient, how long do we have to be resilient, you know? And even to me, I don't even look at it in the aspect of just allowing them to do whatever they want to me. I look at it in the aspect of there's nothing going to stop me from, you know, seeing out the vision of what I need to see. Yes, back in the days, you guys had us in chains and shackles, but guess what, baby? Those times are gone. Those times are gone, and it's no longer that. And they have to hide it because we're stronger. We're showing up now. But I hate even having the race card to even be pulled. Why are we still talking about race? Racism is always going to be a thing. I believe that because we can't change people's personal views and how they were taught and how they think, you know? So it's unfortunate that we're living in a society where it's going to always be a thing. We just have to learn how to maneuver in it and recognize when it's right there in our face.
I think if people want to change, it can. It's like the whole thing with, this is a little bit off topic, like don't say gay. Now they want people like this. Florida and Texas. I live in Florida. I'm so sick of Florida and Texas right now, right? So we had a whole don't say gay thing. And if you feel like somebody is trans, guess what? You got to call, you know, CPS or whatever it's called, DCF on them, and because it might be abuse with the parents. Okay, so now they're trying to suppress that. Now let's talk about this critical race theory thing. Here we go, Florida and Texas going with this craziness where you cannot make white people. This is where white supremacy raises its head, right? So they have this whole thing where you cannot make white people feel uncomfortable, right? So what does that mean? History, what we're talking about, right? Because we can't say Black history, because if we're talking about slavery, that is American history. That is history. That is what happened here on American soil. Okay, so we can't teach about that, right? It's an erasure that is happening as it results or as it relates to the real history of the United States. And until people are comfortable with really talking about, educating, and understanding what the true history is, instead of trying to minimize it or whitewash it or erase it, you're right. We're never going to be able to get past where we are right now, because people are not going to talk about it. And if we don't talk about it, what's going to happen is it's going to be minimized. So generations from now, what the true history is, it will be lost. Because you got to understand, in Black families, we might be talking about it, but guess what? It's not just a Black world. It's white people in this world too. And if they are the ones that are in charge, guess what? They're going to be the ones saying, that's a lie. You didn't experience that. We didn't do that. That didn't happen. Just because we're passing the information down from our grandparents and our great grandparents and our great great grandparents, we keep the real history alive within our families. But we just don't live in a sphere with just our families. We have to deal with other people who are not even, like Pam said, exposed to Black people and Black culture and Black life. So what does that mean when our reality, they can't even wrap their minds or fathom that racism can even exist? Because they feel like it's propaganda. They feel like, oh no, this is a lie. No, that's just fake news. No, that's alternative facts. That's just the media trying to get you upset and trying to divide us. No, the lack of information and education is what is dividing us. Because you're trying to tell me as a Black woman that my experience and what I have experienced is not real. So if you don't see that, you don't see me. So we don't have nothing to talk about. So I feel that if we can have more education, real education, not this whitewash education, real education about historical facts, about how this white supremacy was kind of modeled, the origins of it, really study the depth of how we come to a nation where we have suppression, right? And oppression. And we have this separatism and this elite and this human hierarchy where Blacks are at the bottom and whites are at the top and everybody else in between, until we can have those conversations. And if we are able to really have true conversations about, okay, we see how it was built. How do we unlearn this? How do we unbuild this? Then racism will always exist. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're on mute.
You're muted, honey.
And it just let me know this. So, DeBlair, I have a question for you, as you know, going back to either what Cortina was talking about, but what you was talking about, and especially regarding your book. So you write a lot about your experience in your book. You want to expose a lot of the way things still are in Mississippi, where you are from. What are you hoping that people take away, that they can start enforcing that change that you are looking for, that's desperately needed for the city that you live in?
First of all, I hope it sheds light and recognition and allows them to just kind of sit back and pay attention to situations. I know certain things are just like flat out in the open, unfair, and it could be perceived as what it is. But some things are very, very like hidden, or whatever. Opportunities are hidden. Sometimes you have to leave. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to get up and go out and just kind of explore different opportunities. So I want people to just kind of like know that like nobody can hold you back. You shouldn't be able to be held back by any situation, any like, inadvertently racial thing that's not allowing you to promote in a job. Like they're not even building companies or building like locations where opportunities are there. You have to go outside the local area in order to just kind of like really get a job that's going to pay you money that's even worth having. Or you see multiple people working multiple jobs. People are working 2 and 3 jobs, but they do have other opportunities. They create opportunities for themselves, or even for our people to just kind of like get together and say, hey, we should not wait for them to create these jobs for us. What can we do to start creating these opportunities for ourselves? We're very talented. People are smart. Like you have these people that are like hairstylists, you can hair salons. There's so much that you can do on your own, but you have to start thinking more so, how can what I do help the next person instead of how can what I do just help myself? So if we don't start coming together as a community and looking at things from how I can help other people as well, we're not going to make it, because we're so used to just kind of grabbing onto whatever we can get because we don't get much. And when we get it, we don't want to share it or give it out because it's limited. But we have to start coming together and coming up with a plan to kind of like be able to help each other.
So now what I will say is this, like, you know, I completely agree with you about the community. But one thing I will say, one of the problems that we have in our community is one, that we spent our life being discounted, discredited, undervalued, underrepresented. We need to get out of the mindset of stop doing that to our own community. So it's not that we don't share our money. We just don't share enough of it in our community to make us as wealthy as we are making other people outside of our community.
Right.
So I definitely agree with that. And so as you people start reading your book and feeling empowered to step out of what is the norm or comfort zone for them, what 3 tips would you give them to overcome any fear? Because like you said, you still have triggers. What 3 tips would you give them to help overcome any of those fears or get beyond those triggers?
First, I would say you have to be aware of your unconscious biases that you have, because a lot of the triggers happen because I may not be aware of those unconscious biases that still, like, you know, are present, that because I'm away, I don't really experience them as much because I'm not in that location anymore, right? So also you have to also know, like, what is your purpose for what you're doing? You have to find a purpose and you have to set goals, and things are not just going to happen. You have to really set intentional goals and set a plan of action in order to make it happen. And it may not happen today. So you may have to be a little patient. You may have to sacrifice a little bit, and you may have to ask for help, you know? So those are things that you need to know, that you may not be able to do it by yourself. And you may think like, oh, well, I have 2 kids and if I leave X, Y, and Z, okay, well, what's the plan? Like, what's going to help you leave? You know, you need to kind of set something up or whatever the case may be. So those are some things that some advice that I can give. It's just kind of like, you shouldn't let anything stop you. What does your next life look like? So I can't live in a world where I'm not enjoying my life. I can't. I got to a point where I said, I did a quote on one of my pages. They say, in order to predict the future, you have to create it. Like, I'm going to create my future. What do you want your future to look like? You have to be intentional. I believe in speaking things into existence. Like, I believe that, you know, you manifest what you believe. So even my thought process, I don't even allow myself to think negative thoughts because I'm scared that it's going to happen. So I have to cancel those thoughts. And even down there with the mindset, and I call it small town mindset, and I call it that because I'm a product of it. I know it's nothing that I'm saying that I can't speak and witness and say I'm not a product of. So we have to eliminate that. We have to eliminate that and think bigger and know that, like, whatever we want our life to be, we have to plan for it and move forward accordingly. And if you're okay and content with your life, be okay with that. But don't complain about something if you're not trying to make intentional moves to change it.
Mm-hmm. I love all of that. So when do you have a release date for your book? When can people be expecting it?
So the book will release in the summertime. So the pre-launch will be the end of March. So I'll do the, you know, pre-sales for, you know, about 30 to 60 days. But the end of March, you'll start hearing noise. I'm making noise now, but I'm just kind of like, you know, scratching the surface. But the actual, like, pre-launch will be the end of this month.
Okay. All right. So how can people connect with you and kind of follow this journey that you're going to be on for your book to release?
Oh, absolutely. My social media is I am DeBlair, and I'm very active on the social media. My Facebook is Blair Choose Healthy. You can connect with me those ways. My website is www.deblairfitness.com. Also, check out my fitness apparel gear at 8Figure.com. That's my brand. I have something for everyone. So I'm always, you know, making updates and appearances on there as well. So.
All right. Well, we are definitely looking forward to this book coming out. Your story, it resonates so much with me, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with a whole lot, but it's also going to hopefully ignite that change that's so needed for everyone to personally achieve everything that they want and become go-getters. And I
Absolutely.
think that's so important with us. And hopefully the other part is, after reading your book, I hope people feel more inclined to spend more dollars in our community, uplifting our Black businesses.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for coming by and hanging out with us. You're
Yes,
absolutely
thank you.
I'm definitely looking forward to getting your book and reading it, because I'm floored that there's still so much still going on that was like living in the 1800s right here in 2022. So I'm definitely going to have to be looking into a lot of those things and joining you in your mission to make these changes.
Absolutely.
So have a great rest of your celebrating yourself
Yes.
throughout this whole month and making history with everything that you have going on. So we
Thank
appreciate
you
you for stopping by.
Thank you so much.
Have a good
All
night.
right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, ladies. Oh, that was so empowering. I'm floored that so much still goes on. Like,
I was like, oh, okay.
yeah. And I write a lot about empowering women and changing the narrative and looking at our community and advocating for those changes that needs to be made. But this, I'm blown away. I'm blown away that is so much present. And I know when I went to when I was in South Africa and I went to the Apartheid Museum, and I remember it being in high school during the years that I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, is this really going on? So to hear that something so prevalent is still going on that has such high racism in our world, it solidifies the fact that everything that I write and fight for change is with purpose. And so it's great to see someone else to just say, you know what, we need to make this change. We need to be making these shifts. We can't continue with the status quo, thinking that ignoring the problem means it's going to go away. I think these conversations really need to be had, and it need to be had with people who claim to advocate for us. We need to be asking them, so why are you advocating? What do you know about me that you want to advocate? Because I think sometimes people just do it to clout chase or for perception, or, oh, make it look like I'm doing something because it makes me look less racist. We need to really be having these tough conversations, with anyone who wants to advocate. And sadly, some Black people still don't have a clue. So we need to be having conversations with them. Mental health is real. Racial trauma is real. Suicide is real. Lynching is still a thing, whether it's legal or not. You can take it off the books, but there are still people with that same mindset that's not really willing to make that change. We look at the Ahmaud trial that was in Brunswick, Georgia. It was like, really, you can't even run, and feel safe. And I think everybody who lives in this world and pay taxes, especially in the United States, should be able to feel safe, should have the same level of equity, equality, inclusion. I mean, and not because of affirmative action. Because to me, and I'm writing this paper on, the difference, or is there a difference between affirmative action and white privilege? Because that's what we have to consider. That's when, you have people like Ted Cruz saying that it's offensive that a Black woman will be nominated for the Supreme Court. Why not? Because he was saying that, oh, that's like affirmative action is getting her there, as opposed to she earned that. So he feels
as
like,
if she didn't work her way to
Well,
that
they even
position.
went down the list of all of the other people who were not even judges or attorneys that were not judges or even were able to do certain things. That was like, okay, even
Didn't qualify.
It's like she's way more qualified than other people who have actually sat.
But the good old boy system kept white privilege alive, and that's what we need to start taking down. It's, of course. And so when people complain and say that's offensive, or affirmative action got this Black person in or these Black people in, and then they say, well, we need diversity. No, we've been needing diversity. There's been people who have been qualified and overqualified just to get in sometimes, and they still don't make it in because white privilege will take over. You know, you have the good old boy system, you have all kinds of nepotism, and it doesn't leave much room for us to overcome the consistent trauma that's given to us and that's handed to us. So we need to be more inclined to say, you know what, I need more help. I need help processing these things, because when you have these triggers and you're wondering where they are coming from, it doesn't have to happen directly to you for it to happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to carry the burden and the weight of those things. So we need to get beyond the stigma of therapy, of coaching, or whatever you might need to put yourself in a better space. So I'm definitely looking forward to her book coming out, to see what else I can do to be an advocate for our community. Ladies, do you have any last minute sayings or anything that you want to share or put out? And then, of course, you know, just state where everybody can find you at.
Well, that's why I do trainings with other therapists who don't look like me, and teaching them how to decolonize their private practice and what it looks like, because there's plenty of therapists that don't look like me who have never serviced a Black client ever in their life. So if one walked into your office, would it change the way you provide therapy? Would you be startled? Like, how would you come across? Would you minimize? So really going into depth and detail about how are you servicing individuals that don't come from where you come from? Because yes, all therapists, we are taught to be indifferent, and it's about the patient. But when what you have believed for so long of your life is in stark contradiction to what's sitting on your sofa, how do you handle that? What are some of the things that, you know, cause patients that look like me to respond to you, someone who looks like you, not you two on the screen, but the white therapist, the way that they do? And so these are real conversations, because guess what? In school, and when you're an intern, you're not getting these type of real conversations, because more than likely, if you're white, guess what? Your supervisor is going to be white as well, because that's what you sought out. You know, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm going to get somebody who kind of is doing the same thing that I'm doing, but you got to have a conversation about it so that you can start thinking about it. So you're not caught with your pants down when someone who looks like me comes and sits on your sofa and is talking about, you know what? I'm feeling triggered. There's cultural discrimination. I don't really feel like you're going to understand me as a white woman sitting over there. I'm a Black male, not me, but the Black, you know. And so I just think it's absolutely great that we now have these. Well, you know what happened? I created a whole training program for it in 2020, because I was just like sick, and I was like, okay, this is ridiculous, especially when I have people with the same letters behind their name as I, and you can't even honestly talk about how you feel about transference, or have you had a conversation with the patients that you're talking about with the social injustice and the racial issues that's taking place that all of us can see, but because you're so far removed from it, it's like another day. Because I know if I have 10 patients in a week and that's the conversation, I'm pretty sure if you have Black clients, they might not be comfortable with saying it, but it's your responsibility as the therapist to kind of call the elephant out in the room, to make it comfortable for the patient who looks like me to want to be able to share that and talk to you all. Now, I don't know if y'all noticed, but this is one of my therapy. Racial issues is one of my passions and everything like that. So
yeah, I think we know this.
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
But it's great because you can use your platform, you can use what you stand for and help other therapists and help other people to see, because they need that.
Yeah, it's important.
It very much so is. So where can everybody find you? Of course, you know it's right there on the screen. And what about you, Lisa?
You can find me at the Blue Phoenix Hills.
And I'm so mad I couldn't come on earlier, but I had a little mini crisis with
it's all you came on right on time.
You came on time. And of course you can reach me on all platforms at IAMDRPGURLEY. I am Dr. P Gurley, and I know I always spell it out for those people who are not watching but are listening, and I know because people mess my name up all the time. And of course with the Herspiration brand, you can follow us at DAW Entertainment on Instagram, and of course on Facebook at Herspiration Happy Hour and Herspiration HH on Twitter. Follow us on our YouTube channel, subscribe. We'll have a lot more great guests coming up. Right now, ladies, we are booked, I think that through until, I think the next one is not even until May. We're booked all the way through April. So the next guest is coming on. You know, so here's my blind me, because I got to put my glasses on. So our next guest next weekend is Ariana Dugan. So she'll be our guest next week on Herspiration Happy Hour. You know, we love all of you all for, you know, just coming out and hanging out with us. And like we always do, if you love the show, hit us on the tip jar, www.buymeacoffee.com/HerspirationHH. And, you know, drop those tips in. If, you know, it keeps us going, it keeps everything live, and it also keeps us from having to charge our guests, because I don't really want to have to do that. I think everybody's story is so enriching and so empowering that, you know, I want to be able to have them on. And as you see, it's growing even more because we're booked all the way out. The next feature that you can book with us is on in May. I think it's May 6th. Mm-hmm. With that being said, if you want to be featured on Herspiration Happy Hour, go to our website, www.dawentertainment.com/podcast. And there's a link in there that says want to be featured. And all you'd have to do is click to fill that out. If you are a PR that's watching, same thing. You don't have to send emails to herspirationhappyhour@gmail.com. You can actually just go right here. www.dawentertainment.com/podcast and just fill out all of the information, and you will then hear as I think about 2 to 3 days before your feature, you will get your promo as well as the link to join the show. We are so grateful that you stopped by and hung out with us as always. Ladies, anything else?
No.
Okay, well, as our favorite word after our cocktails and conversation, cheers!
Cheers!